To go if everybody will be on mute. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Atlanta Press Club. My name is Christy Wooten. I'm president of the club. Thank you for joining us today for our check-in series event, Press On, Rebranding the AJC. Today, we are hosting the leadership of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, editor Kevin Reilly and publisher Donna B Hall to discuss the publication's evolving business model and the reasons why it is retooling its visual brand, in part by unifying its print and digital products under a single banner. We will also hear from some of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reporters who are featured here in the new Press On campaign. Thank you to our audience for joining us today, for supporting the work of the Atlanta Press Club by attending this event. Would like to remind you that if you have questions for our moderator or panelists today, please type them into the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can always visit atlantapressclub.org to see our upcoming events, to become a member of the club, or to donate to the club. We are a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. All right, let's get started with the program today. Today, we've asked Donna Lowry to moderate the program. Donna is a frequent guest moderator here at the club, and she is the host of Georgia Public Broadcasting's Lawmakers program. Donna is a 7-time Emmy Award-winning journalist who has also won honors from the National Association of Black Journalists and the Society of Professional Journalists. As always, welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Christy. And not just because in 9th grade, I decided I wanted to become a journalist and worked on becoming editor of the high school paper and then did the same thing in college. So this is just my area and I'm really excited about it. Of course, a lot of people watching are probably went through the same path. So I'm excited about doing this and hearing what our panelists have to say. So let's get started. And first, let's welcome Donna B Hall. She is publisher of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And Donna, who has this wonderful name, became publisher in 2019 after serving as vice president of marketing, radio, and newspaper operations for Cox Media Group and other roles across decades with the company. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. We are also pleased to have with us today the editor of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Kevin Reilly. And Kevin Reilly has served as the publication's editor since January of 2011. And under his guidance, the newspaper was named a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in 2017. Kevin is also an award-winning podcaster, receiving the American Bar Association's prestigious Silver Gavel Award in 2018. Welcome, Kevin. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Donna, in yet another place here online. So,
absolutely. We're all over the place online. We also want to welcome reporters from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Ernie Suggs and Kelly Yamanouchi, to talk about their roles in the publication's new campaign called Press On. And they will join us in a few moments, but you guys can wave, say hi, both of you. All righty then. So before we get into the discussion though, we want to watch a quick video. So Christy, I'll turn it back over to you for that part.
We press on for you because it's our mission, dedicated to investigation, because the facts matter, fueled with determination, because it's our calling, driven by passion, because you deserve to know what's really going on. Please support real journalism.
I love that. Our calling driven by passion. So let's get into it. We'll start with you, Donna Hall. Why is the AJC engaging in this visual rebrand right now? And, you know, I'm curious as to how long it's been in the works.
Yeah, so there are a number of reasons. It's been in the works conceptually for about 18 months. We started talking about the need to have a shift. Really very specifically in earnest, we've been working on it since last summer. The first reason is as we continue to move forward as a digital entity, we need to make sure that there's alignment across all of our platforms. We didn't have that before. We were really operating with two different brand names for a long period of time. In our printed products, we were known as the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and in most of our digital products, we were really known as the AJC. And what we found through research is there was a good bit of confusion in the marketplace about whether or not they were even the same company. So we really do need to rectify that, and make sure that folks know that the same rigor, the same persistence, the same value that they get in their journalism in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the printed product, they will also receive in any of the other platforms. Digital, mobile, newsletters, anything like that. So that's why you see now the masthead across all of those platforms. So folks do realize it's the same organization and it's the same trusted name that has been part of Atlanta for so many years. So that's the first reason. The second reason Press On campaign is so vital to us now is we believe that people need to understand journalism is a human endeavor. It is content produced by humans for humans, and that making our journalists part of this campaign really brings that alive. And humanizing what we do, we think will not only add to the value and the notion of this human endeavor, but will also create a loyalty and a support in the communities that we serve. So that's the second reason. And then lastly, the third really big reason is folks need to understand we need their support. Our communities need a free press. Free press need people in those communities. There is a connection there. We need their support through subscriptions, through donations, through reading our products wherever they read them. And we need them, they need us. And so it's really, those three reasons are the big priorities of why now. It's a critical time for us.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about each of those areas in a moment, including the change in the masthead. So I'm really interested in that. Kevin, let's get to you. Take us back to when you became editor of the AJC in 2011, and major newspapers across the country, they faced certainly multiple crises since that time. And can you tell the viewers a little bit about some of the struggles for your newsroom and what you faced, and then the climate that we're dealing with as you rebrand?
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I mean, I don't think it's any secret, certainly to all the journalists who are paying attention today, and anyone who works with journalists, that newspapers' financial model has completely changed during, since I've been in Atlanta. We have gone from a really fundamentally overall advertising-based model to now what needs to be a subscription model. So a big part of this new way of looking at things, and I don't really call it a marketing campaign. I mean, to me, it's more of like a state of mind and a way of being for us to think about ourselves and our work. We are going to have to make sure that people in Atlanta and Georgia understand that we need them to subscribe, that if they want and value what we do, and we certainly hope that they do, and they understand the important role our institution plays, that we really need their support so that someone can keep an eye on the legislature and other people and do the sorts of things we've been able to do in the pandemic. That is a big part of what this is about. And a lot of it's us being very open and straightforward about it, that this is the situation newspapers are in, and we want you to know. We want you to know who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, and to make it very personal to citizens of Atlanta and Georgia.
Yeah. I want to stick with you, Kevin, a little bit. Certainly in the past year and with the 2020 elections, the AJC experienced this national appearance, where you were elevated, your reporters, were all over the place on CNN, on MSNBC. It was great to see them, especially for someone like me, people I know. But how is this rebrand connected to all of that, or is it?
Well, I do think that it's important that people in Atlanta and Georgia and, frankly, around the country know that, as Donna pointed out, the people who produce this work are real people and they're working really hard and this is a calling. And I think you'll hear that kind of stuff from Ernie and Kelly when they get a chance to join in here. But we are in a world where people want to demonize the media sometimes, and at most and often just depersonalize it. Talk about the media as if it's some distant institution. And what we want people to say or understand is, no, we are right here. We live in your community. We may go to church with you. Our kids may go to school with yours. And it's really important for you to know that these people are absolutely devoted to getting the truth to you, to following the facts, wherever they lead, and to make sure that you are a well-informed citizen and that the people of the state can make good decisions based on good information, and that the leaders in our state and community will be held accountable for the decisions that they make.
Yeah. Let's get to you, Donna, and let's talk about the business of newspapers, especially during the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about the effects of the pandemic on the media industry and ways that the business has changed in the past year and has changed possibly the business model of the AJC in the past year?
Yeah, so Kevin touched on the fact that media organizations, whether they're newspapers, any traditional TV, radio, cable, we've all been impacted over the last number of years by the business models and the shift in advertising support to digital pure plays. We're all scrapping it out for less money in the traditional platforms, and then with the big guys, the big national players that are taking 80-90% of the digital revenue, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons. So that alone, before the pandemic, impacted traditional media organizations. So the pandemic started, and even that traditional advertising revenue, there were big deficits last year for all of us. Folks weren't open. Car dealers, restaurants, entertainment, they're not advertising because they're not open. So we certainly, like most media organizations, felt a pretty big impact in 2020 that is coupled with the fact that newspapers' business model is going more to the way of being a subscription-based model versus an advertising-based model. So you have a perfect storm right now for traditional media outlets. And so, it's impacted us greatly. Now we're weathering fine. We're trying to figure those things out and have been. This is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on in the newspaper world for the better part of 20 years, really, since the internet really began to explode for people's news consumption. And so it has impacted us financially and will continue to. That's why it's really important for us. This campaign is important, but also pointing to digital and getting people to understand that we need their subscription for digital too. For a long time, newspapers gave their digital content away for free, for page views, and then we would monetize them through advertising. Well, that shift in that advertising revenue has made it an imperative for us to begin saying, that the same content that you get your printed newspaper, you're also getting digital. We need you to support us through a subscription for that. Journalists kind of expect to make a living. We can only do that if we're getting revenue from subscriptions and from advertising. And so we have to have the public support to continue doing what we do. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a change in mindset. I think people are still thinking of the old model in terms of advertising and not in this new subscription model. We're seeing it, we're being asked to subscribe, but we may not understand why. And I think you did a good job of explaining that. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But I do want to talk a little bit about something that I think is interesting, and that is dealing with your changing your masthead. You've changed it. So to both of you, so apparently the Atlanta Journal-Constitution goes all the way back to 1868, and the paper had, was just the Constitution at that point, right? Use a masthead with all capital letters, and you use this serif font, and now you're using with the same kind of font as a lot of the major newspapers across the country. It's sort of like this brotherhood getting together of a black letter Gothic typeface. The fact that we know fonts now is just amazing to me, also as somebody who struggled when I was learning how to type. But anyway, are we going back a little bit? I mean, to what was old, to back to, you know, what was old is new again?
Great question. And we talked a lot about this. It's really 1939 is when Governor Cox purchased the Atlanta Journal, and then the Constitution in the 1950s. And it's a look back to 1939. It's not exactly like that masthead, but it is an updated version of the 1939 masthead from when Governor Cox purchased the paper, updated to be both old and new. We want people to understand we've been part of this community for a very long time. We are steeped in history and legacy, and we want to have a look back to that, but also a fresh take on it to say, but we're an organization moving forward. We're not just steeped in old things, you know, hearkening back to the early 1900s. We're taking that history and why it's been so meaningful and important, polishing it and looking forward. And so it's a little bit of both in our minds.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm curious about the solidarity part of it with these other major newspapers. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think the most important thing we're really doing is saying, especially since we've put the new logo on our all of our digital products, is saying symbolically, hey, this is that serious news organization that you know, and it's coming to you in different formats and formats that you prefer or that are more convenient for you. And that we had lost our way a little bit with ajc.com, which is still, of course, our URL and still the shorthand. People will refer to us by and all that. But instead, it's a way of saying, just as you've seen some other of our the nation's most important news organizations say and do in their work, is this name and this brand and this tradition behind it means that what we're doing is important. It's uniquely Atlanta and Georgia, and we're here, and we're going to be here for we're going to press on, I guess is the way I should say it. And that's really the mindset behind it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that press on campaign a little bit. Can you tell us what it's about and what you hope to accomplish, what you're looking to achieve? Especially, I love the fact that you're spotlighting some of the reporters, and we're going to have two of them on a little later. So tell us about that.
Yeah, press on for us means a number of things. It means rigor. It means persistence. Love that word, persistence. That's what press on is. It's about passion. It's about all those things rolled into one line of press on: persistence, rigor, and passion. We think that the campaign really reflects what we do in those three ways through the work of the journalists. And we're spotlighting 11. You can read their letters, why they do what they do, who they are. They're all ajc.com/press on. You can read about all of them. You can see all of the assets and the collateral and all of it supporting, we're here for you. We're here for the communities that we serve in this rigorous way. And that's what it means to me. Kevin, I don't know if you want to chime in on that too.
Yeah, I really want to add something, and this is really, I mean, we are talking to the Atlanta Press Club, so many fellow journalists, and I'm just going to be honest. I mean, I'm an editor, and so a marketing campaign to me is something to be a little skeptical of. And we pushed hard on this. Our VP of Marketing, Amy Chown, and I have been working together on all of that 18 months that Donna described. And here's what I believe. I mean, this is not a marketing campaign. A marketing campaign is going to come about as a result of this, but this is a way of thinking, a way of working. It is a way of building a culture in an organization. And it is a rallying cry, even an attitude, because this is what we do. I mean, Donna, we report some story about Governor Kemp, and he calls a press conference to talk about how wrong we are, and what do our reporters do? They keep at it. They're back again tomorrow. They press on. And that's actually what has been so motivating and almost emotional for me, because during this whole pandemic, the things our staff has done, as hard as they have worked, it has been, for me, one of the great moments of my career.
Yeah, that's true. As journalists, you have to learn to live with discomfort, and certainly this past year has been a time of that, dealing with things like that, where the media has been attacked, and being at a press conference where you're being attacked is uncomfortable. So, but you're right, they do press on. I do want to get into the whole. There's a button on your Press On campaign on the webpage that asks people to donate. So I want to talk about that a little bit. It takes people to a site called Give Butter, and it says that the donation is not tax deductible, and that that it's not a subscription. And Donna, you had talked a little bit about the subscription earlier. So can you tell us the process, how it's structured? Is it a nonprofit arm of the paper? What are you telling people that with this?
Yep. So a couple different things. It is not a nonprofit arm of the paper. We don't have one of those. We really want to begin seeding in people's mind that we do need their support. And that support can come in a couple of different ways. A subscription gets you full access to all of our products, printed, digital, in any form. There are people who don't want a subscription, but they believe in journalism, and they want to support journalism, but not necessarily through a subscription. Then there are folks who want to do both. They want a subscription, and they also want to continue to donate to something maybe they're passionate about. And we want people to have that opportunity to donate to the journalistic work, to the rigor and the persistence of what we do through donations. So it's another option to support your journalism outlet in Atlanta. So then we have advertising, we have the subscription part of the model, and then we are just beginning. And this, I think that launched, Kevin, maybe 6 weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, the opportunity to give through donations that, as you mentioned, are not tax deductible.
Donna, what I would add to that as well is this is also something I'm sure some folks listening are familiar with this. It's been a trend across the country, in particular in places where the newspaper has gotten in serious financial trouble, where there's been a huge concern in the community that the newspaper could be lost. And philanthropists have stepped in and in part begun to support different aspects of what the newspaper does. That is something that we think is on the horizon. We have the good fortune of working and being owned by a family that has about as big a commitment to our community as any family anywhere in the country has to their community. But what we really want people to see is that, and believe, is that we are in a really important institution, part of the very fabric of Atlanta, and that they believe they should, support us in the best way that they can, because they value so much what we do.
Yeah. So, and we have some questions about that coming up. But before we get into questions, I do want to bring in the two star reporters, a part of this campaign, who are pressing on. Let's bring in Ernie Suggs and Kelly Yamanouchi, award-winning journalists at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So welcome back we introduced you at the beginning, but we want to get into some things. And Ernie, let's start with you. As a seasoned reporter, that's how I like to refer to myself. Seasoned. You and Kelly are both faces of this Press On campaign. And why did you agree to be featured? And what do you hope that participation in this kind of campaign will do for you personally as a journalist and your work?
First of all, I agree because Kevin called me and told me to do it. But no,
I get it.
Or he had someone call me. But no, I think it's a great campaign. Kevin, I appreciate what Kevin said. This is not a marketing campaign, but more of a way to build a culture. And with the way things have been going with the media, with journalism over the last 4 years, particularly with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution over the last year covering this pandemic. This is a way to help build our culture internally. So when I got the call to be a part of this campaign, there was no way that I was going to turn it down. And looking at what we have produced, Ben Gray, who's been a photographer, one of the great photographers in the city for the last quarter century, did a fantastic job capturing the 11 journalists who were in the campaign. So being a part of it was never a question. And I think that it's very important now more than ever that we, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I'm using the full name, let the community, let the world know who we are, kind of like announce our presence with authority again, as we've done over the last century, to remind people of the great journalism that we're doing. And one thing before Kelly jumps in, 11 of us were chosen, but by no means are we the 11 greatest or the best reporters at the paper. We, as you know, from what we've been covering, what we've been doing, covering the governor's race, covering the senatorial race, covering the presidential race, covering the pandemic, covering city halls, covering housing. You know, we have a newsroom full of great journalists, and me being chosen is an honor, but I was not chosen because I'm the best. I was chosen because Kevin could have picked 11 of us out of a hat and it would have had the same impact. So thank you.
Yeah, I also know that journalists don't do anything they don't want to do. So I know you wouldn't have done it unless you really wanted to do it and felt committed to it. So
I will never give up an opportunity to be on the side of a bus.
That's, I can't wait to see that. I'll be looking for your face on the side of the bus. I can't wait. Kelly, let's talk about you and your involvement in this campaign.
Well, I thought it was just a really great opportunity to share about how passionate we really are about serving the reader. And like how Kevin said, that it is a calling, and the calling is to really serve, people, to serve our communities, to serve our neighbors. And I think a lot of people don't realize that reporters and journalists really have that kind of a deep devotion. So I love the idea of readers being able to feel more connected and involved in the mission of the newspaper. And that's the thing that I think is kind of a hidden opportunity in the transformation that newspapers have been forced to go through, that we can feel more connected to our readers and our subscribers and kind of pursue this shared mission. And I was really pleased with how kind of authentic the development of the campaign was. The letters that each of the journalists wrote. I really enjoyed reading, everyone else's letters and to hear kind of different people's perspectives on why they, what drives them and what motivated them to get into this business, and to see that we all have kind of, a common thread between us. That was kind of neat, just being part of it as well.
Yeah, I will admit I read all of those letters before I knew I was doing this. I mean, when the campaign first came out, because I thought it was pretty cool. I think it's always good to read, for us all to be introspective in a way, but also to read how, others feel about it who are in the same business. So I do love those letters, and I do love the pictures that were done. But Ernie, let's get your thoughts on something else, and that this whole visual rebrand and the impact of the design on perceptions and stereotypes in journalism. In particular, the comparisons between other great newspapers, the flagship newspapers, the New York Times and the Washington Post. What are your feelings about all of that?
Well, I mean, I consider ourselves, we're a flagship. We're one of the biggest papers in the South. We're an important paper. We're a destination paper. When I was growing up in North Carolina, working for the Durham Herald-Sun, I wanted to come to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This was in 1997. I've been at the paper for 24 years now. I came here as a kid. Now I have all this gray hair that I haven't cut. But, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has always done important work. So, yeah, we are a regional paper, but I don't put us on a different level than the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN, because we're doing equally important work. We don't necessarily have the resources that they have, but we have, like I said, the 11 of us who were picked for this, we have all done fantastic work over these last 4 years or so under very extenuating circumstances. And for us to continue to do that, and for us to be, I don't want to say rewarded with this campaign, but for us to be highlighted with this campaign is special. And it kind of shows the world, it shows, New York, and it shows Washington, and it shows papers all over, it shows media consumers all over the world that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or it reminds them that, oh yeah, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has always been doing this great work. Now they're promoting themselves a little bit. And sometimes it's really good to promote yourself. As journalists, we always kind of take a back seat. We always kind of be in the back, we let our work speak for ourselves. But this is a great opportunity to remind people to say, hey, they are doing good work, and let's acknowledge that, and let's acknowledge the fact that they're acknowledging it, and move on from there.
Yeah, I think absolutely under the subscription model that makes sense, because actually for me, it's all on the same level, because you have access. The access is there for everybody when you have the subscriptions to several newspapers, and you want to have your subscription to your local newspaper, and you guys do such a great job of talking about the same things I'm seeing everywhere in other publications.
Yeah, and over the last year, and I don't mean to cut you off, but over the last year, I don't know, Kevin and Donna have the data, but where else were you going in the country other than Washington covering the presidency to find political news? Atlanta was the hub of that. Atlanta is the hub of how we're distributing the coronavirus vaccine. So if you're looking for news and how it is impacting the United States of America, you're coming to Atlanta. So, I mean, there's no doubt about that. So I think that, in terms of how we compare to other papers, I see us as on par with any other media company in the whole country, in the world.
Yeah, Atlanta is certainly ground zero for all political coverage. And so with the reporters here who know the area, who know the people, who know all that's taking place, it was great to be able to see the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's perspective on everything during all of this. So let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of the rebrand, and when it comes to initiatives dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion at the paper and Cox overall. So I'll start with you, Kelly. Talk about where this all fits in, this Press On campaign.
Well, for me, I've always loved the idea of being able to grow the diversity of our readership, and to kind of, grow a kind of a real community, and increase our reach, so that we can kind of, get the demand for the type of coverage that's really all encompassing. And so I guess my hope is that this campaign will help with that, to kind of communicate the values that we have as a newspaper, that a lot of our longtime subscribers have always known about, but that, perhaps, more younger people and a broader part of the community who may mainly be reading us online, that they could also learn about more about what our mission is and how we're really trying to serve them.
Okay, Ernie?
Yeah, we have a great emphasis on diversity and inclusion here at the paper. I'm the chairman of the Newsroom's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, of which Kelly, I'm trying to get Kelly on the committee. She keeps refusing me for whatever reason, but but we take it seriously, and I think that the campaign shows you that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I think a lot of times newspapers and media companies get stereotyped as being these places for white men, and I think that the campaign shows you that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is a true reflection of the diversity of the city of Atlanta, the diversity of the region in which we cover. So you see Kelly, you see me, you see Tia, who's our Washington correspondent. And I think it's important that Kelly, Kelly covers Delta. She covers one of the most important industries in the world. We have Wilborn, who's covering City Hall. We have Michael Cunningham, who's one of our sports columnists. So you see during this campaign, again, we have Bill Rankin and Bill Torpy, these guys who've been here forever, who are, are the foundations of all the stuff that we do as a newsroom. But you see that diversity in our newsroom, and you understand as a reader and as a consumer of our product that we are a true reflection of our community through our diversity in the newsroom. And we're trying to get better. As I said, I'm the chairman of the committee in the newsroom, and we're trying every day to get better as a diverse news organization. And we're reflecting that through our coverage.
Yeah. Absolutely. Donna, I did want to ask you, as we talk about that, and we've got lots of good questions, so we're going to get to those in a moment. But I wanted to ask about just cultivating these star reporters, what that process was like, because you have so many good ones to choose from.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to kick that one to Kevin
Okay.
because he was the chief architect of how we chose and how we formed that.
So Donna, my first step was to demand kickbacks from any reporter who wanted to be in the campaign. No, I'm going to paint a target on my back, and an important one here. Of course, you can imagine what it was like to try to say, well, gosh, we've got to make this work. We need this number of people. And so and Amy Chowner, our marketing VP, will remember this. I said, I will pick them. I think only one person has to take the responsibility and any of the heat or praise that comes along with doing that. And I felt like, I was putting together a Major League Baseball team, and I could pick from nothing but all-stars, right? And trying to figure out. So we really, we expect to add people over time. I mean, and eventually, I'd actually like the whole staff to write letters. I would like our whole, including like our customer service people and advertising and everybody, because I want our readers and our digital subscribers and everybody to know who these people are that work for them. And what I always say is, you can go to any place in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and find people who could work anywhere they wanted. And they work there. They work here with us because it's so important to them what we do. And they want to be part of something bigger, not just some job, So I kind of justified my decisions by thinking, well, over time, we'll be able to get more people in. But we knew that we wanted to represent key parts of our work, especially investigative journalism, and especially some of the journalists who do things, have done things for a long time, or bring really great perspective. And I wanted our audience, especially our digital audience, to see people that they would say, gosh, that person is someone I'd like to read, or someone I'd like to follow, because they seem to know things and see things I care about. And that was a big part of it. But it wasn't easy, and I'm not sure if, how many people are angry with me for not picking them. But they were my choices, and I'm living with them. And I think that folks have done a great job, those who committed to being part of it.
I think it's great. And I love the fact that you're thinking of adding other ones. And one reason I asked that question is there is a question from an anonymous attendee asking why Greg Bluestein wasn't chosen. And I'm thinking if it's anonymous, it must be him. So I'm just putting that out there because I know Greg. Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get to some of the questions from the attendees. Here's one. And I think this is probably for you, Donna, how's the philanthropic aspect of your campaign going? And how did you come up with the strategy of asking people to donate for the COVID-19 coverage? And somebody said this person said they donated.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, we're in contact. You mentioned a number of other publications and across the United States. This is an effort across the United States. The notion of philanthropic giving. Kevin mentioned that earlier on. And so how we came to this was really through a lot of contacts in the industry, what other people are doing, what other people are trying. So that's we've been talking about this, Kevin, again, 18 months, a year, something like that, is really when this push began of, is that something that we should try? How is it going so far? We kicked it off about 6 weeks ago. We've had, not a crazy amount of folks hit the Give Butter campaign. I would say less than 20-ish. And their dollar amounts ranging anywhere from $5 to a couple of hundred. I think the average right now is somewhere around that $50 amount. It's more than anything right now. It is an opportunity for us to get out the message that we need your support. No matter where you live, we need you to support your journalistic outlet in your town. Might well be the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It might be another newspaper where you live. If we're all stronger together as a newspaper industry, We need to be getting out the message that we need support. And so I think it's going pretty much as we expected. We didn't think we were going to open some floodgate and millions of dollars were going to come marching in. It's really more right now about laying the foundation of what can you do to support the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Donations is one way.
Okay. Let's talk about that in terms of subscriptions and fees, because we've got a couple of questions that deal with that. This is from Andreas, who says, why are there different subscription fees and in tiers? And she said, I've been a subscriber for 20 plus years. I found that I was paying way more annually than someone else. The adjustment was made and literally saved us hundreds of dollars. But why are there different levels and no transparency with that? And then somebody else asked, Devon asked whether there is there a difference between subscribing to a certain writer than subscribing to the whole newspaper? So can you talk a little bit about how those decisions were made and what that all's about?
So the second question is an easy, there isn't a difference. We don't have a subscription tier that allows you to subscribe to a particular writer or a particular beat. It is a subscription of the content itself, the overarching content. The first question about different tiers really comes down to when you think about gaining a new subscriber, how familiar they are with the products that they have to choose from, and their willingness to pay a higher rate is just very much, it's a growth process. To gain a new subscriber, generally you have to gain them at a little bit lower rate monthly. And over time, get them to a place where they're paying the same as someone who has been a 20-year subscriber, a 30-year subscriber, or whatever it may be. Generally, it's a market entry rate. And then you go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And then there was one other question asking if you guys were going nonprofit. I'm assuming no. You answered that earlier, so we have that. I do like this question, Kevin, is do you feel the demand for credible information is higher than ever? And this is from Sean McIntyre.
I don't think there's any question about that, especially for the most important consumers and leaders in any market, but particularly here in Georgia and in Atlanta. I think that that is going to be a really important thing going forward. I have this thing I say to people all the time, and there are probably people who are on who've heard me say this, like I'll go out and give a speech and people will start their complaining about the media. And I'll say, look, if you're complaining about your social media feed, I can't help you. I mean, to me, using your social media feed as your news source is like eating at McDonald's every day. It's just not good for you. So you've got to go out and you've got to get really good news sources to inform yourself. And I think, obviously that's a position we want to be in. Donna, Georgia Public Broadcasting obviously cares very much about that same position. And this will only become more and more important. I'm going to jump ahead. I can kind of see in the chat a question from Robin Kemp at the Clayton Crescent. Am I allowed to ask myself a question, Donna?
Go ahead and ask that. That was what I was getting to, because I think that's a very good question. And it's something that a lot of people will be interested in who are starting up publications like her great publication.
Yeah, so Robin, thanks for the question. And I admire greatly what you have accomplished at the Clayton Crescent, and we have been paying close attention. I think that nonprofit news organizations will only grow, and I think there's a lot of interest in making sure they are supported. And I will tell you, we have great interest in partnering with such organizations because we believe that, again, if we think about this idea of pressing on and having a common purpose as we go forward, I think there are many, many ways to work together. And we shouldn't be competing for donors or philanthropic support or other support. We should find ways to make sure that we can work together. So I hope we can sometime very soon. And I'll leave it at that.
Can I add to that? For a long time in the newspaper business, it didn't matter whether you were in the same market at all. You considered another newspaper your competitor, even if they were out west and you're in the south. I think we're all learning that we can be stronger together. We should be sharing the best ideas. We should be partnering every way possible. I was on an industry call yesterday where it was an executive voices call where we are talking about our biggest problems and how we're solving them. We have to do that together. And I could not agree more with Kevin that we need to find ways to partner with all of our brethren.
Yeah. So another comment is about the fact that there were cutbacks you guys had to make. Everybody had to make them, certainly in the past year. And was there a subsidy for this from Cox?
We haven't had a lot of cutbacks in the last year. We've been staying pretty steady. We didn't have furloughs. We didn't have layoffs. We held really steady through the pandemic. Now we've got some changes coming up later in the year. Our lease is up in our residence in Dunwoody, and so we're taking an opportunity to move to a much smaller location. That is, that's a great opportunity for us as we watch our P&L to have a more collaborative space. We're staying in the same general region. But so there are things like that we absolutely are doing, that we've been doing for years to just make sure that we're managing our money wisely.
Yeah, I think all of us, a lot of companies are doing the same thing. Certainly the smart thing to do business-wise. But Kevin, I wanted to ask you the question from Susan Chanup, as she says at Emory, they love the hashtag journalism matters. A lot of us do. I'm a fan too. So she was wondering how this will impact the types of stories you were covering, if there'll be changes in beat assignments, those kinds of things.
Well, we're always thinking about the best way to provide the coverage and what kind of coverage. I mean, we never have enough people or enough resources to do everything that we would like to do. But what I think people will see mostly from us going forward is a very big commitment to our digital products, the user experience in those products, the technology behind those products, and also the way we present stories and how we do our storytelling in those products, because that is really the future. That is really what people expect from us. And we're also learning that people who are not quote unquote print newspaper readers, they like and trust the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They know when they see a story or content that is branded by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that they can trust it. So we have to go meet them where they are, and we have to provide content that resonates with them. So we're always doing research. We're always working on that. I don't think you're going to see us turn some things upside down. We're still going to be doing a lot of investigative stuff. We are going to really cover politics. We are going to cover our sports teams. We are going to do big enterprising stories about, the big issues in Atlanta, which we all, I think, understand what those are. And we're going to be a watchdog. But we are going to get that to people in a way that meets them where they are.
Yeah. One of the questions here, Richard Eldridge asked, Kevin, what strategies are being developed by legacy news outlets like the AJC to combat this rise in conspiracy theory-driven digital entities, that we've seen politically entrenched folks believe and they share online. So as journalists, you're fighting that on a constant basis, right?
Right, and we've done a lot of work with a really influential journalism nonprofit called Trusting News. We've had them come in for training. We adopt some of their best practices. We participate and have actually created some of what have become their best practices. We think if we continue to focus on credibility and trust, and people know us, they understand who we are, and we're not just some distant website they've heard of, but instead they know we live and work for them, that is the best path for us that we see right now. And I think that that's going to be true for a lot of media entities.
Can I dovetail on that too? I mean, you'll see in a lot of our stories in print and online, we'll do what we call explainers. How did we get this story? But where did it come from? What does this story mean? What's the genesis of it? And so there is a lot of how we do this that we publish along with a story. So it can be a little cut through that. Is this really right? Well, it is really right, and this is how we got to it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know whether Ernie, you or Kelly want to jump in at any time. You're welcome to on any of these questions or some comments. Not putting you on the spot, but you're welcome to jump in.
Oh yeah, well, no, I think that I love all the questions. I love all the responses of Kevin and Donna, but I just think that in terms of the conspiracy stuff, I look at it this way. I'm on social media a lot, and I see the things that people are posting. I see things that people post about the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. To be honest with you, and we all know who those people are, and I think it's best. I think it's best for all of us to kind of ignore that, but also understand where you're getting your news from. And I think Kevin was, I never even thought about what Kevin said about if you're not trusting your news, I'm paraphrasing him, if you're not trusting your news, you probably need to adjust your timeline, your social media timeline. Because, we all know, I think even those who are putting stuff out there that we know is definitively and definitely false, they understand that it's false. I think they understand that it's false, but I think that they are trying to forward a narrative. And I think that if we get over that narrative, if we let people know that, if you want to find out real news about what's going on at the State House, you need to read Mark Nisi, you need to read Greg Bluestein. If you want to find out real news about what's going on at Delta, you need to read Kelly Yamanouchi. So I think that, it's important for all of us. I think it's, for all of us who are looking at this to stress when you're confronted with these conspiracy theories that, to get your real news, go directly to the source. And, it's frustrating for me when, I see people on Twitter and Facebook saying, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is fake news. And they never say why we're fake news other than the fact that they don't agree with what we've written, other than they've come to the conclusion that that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reporting of facts does not comply with the facts that they want to be complied with. Therefore, that's fake news. I think we need to all get over that. I think we all need to kind of combat that aggressively and, just continue to kind of do what we do at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and not worry about it and just continue to write facts.
Yeah, Kevin, just focusing on what you do, let the reporters do, just doing your work rather than doing a lot of slamming some of the conspiracy theories, except that digging into a particular story and giving the facts.
Right, I think the facts will win out. Hey, Donna, one thing we haven't gotten to, Ernie is modeling the windbreaker we got all employees with the new logo. As anyone who works at any company knows, one of the greatest things about a branding campaign is that you get a bunch of new stuff, In fact, Amy Chown, she's going to kill me because I keep mentioning her. She got mad at me because I had the wrong coffee cup on a call the other day. So But Ernie's like a model, and he's probably going to get one of the other gifts we sent people. Yeah, show him, Ernie.
Okay, so what is that?
This is kind of.
I guess it goes back to the old, yeah. So tell us what it is. It's what the newspapers.
Old-fashioned newspaper boy's bag. I used to deliver the paper as a kid, so it reminds me of that. So. Maybe I'll put my laptop in it and come to a story and cover something with it. Do my little modeling here thing with the press on right there.
Yeah, I really had to talk Ernie into being part of this campaign, as you can see, Don. It was really it was a struggle.
It was tough. It was tough to get him involved. And then you couldn't have picked a better model, though.
And I want to jump in here too, since we're talking about the logo and spreading it on products. But also back a little bit, I know Donna had asked the question earlier about the font. And I think from someone who has studied design, I feel like there are fonts that we trust immediately, especially with online journalism. We go on a website and we see a bunch of crazy fonts that don't look streamlined. And we're like, maybe this is not the top product that I should be looking at. So I did a little research before this event today, and it looked like probably around the top 20 metro areas in the US, and the papers that represent those areas are going back to this black letter Gothic font for their primary masthead. And I think that, Donna had mentioned sort of the brotherhood of papers earlier. I do think there's something to be said from switching from more of a consumer friendly, almost retail oriented, softened font to this old style font does say something about, you know, what people trust. And I know that there's probably some data to show that too, but also just a matter of feel of like, when you arrive at a website, when you're in print, you kind of get a better idea. You're holding a real newspaper, but when you're online, you kind of have to trust your instincts sometime. And I think that that's an important step. And the fact that so many of the major markets are doing that together is, and also they seem to be the ones that are dedicated to following the truth and seeking the truth in their reporting. So I just wanted to get some overall thoughts on that from you.
You're absolutely right. It was part of the conversation, even as we, Amy Chown, we'll throw her name in there again, got many newspapers and spread them along the wall, taped them all along the wall. And we began looking at a lot of examples and a lot of specimens on what is out there. And it absolutely does come to your point to what's trusted, what feels stately, what feels right, what feels, I don't know, I think weighty is and trusted is a really big reason why we love this. And you know, it's a little polished up. It's not exactly like the old 1939 version for us. We used advertising agency Idea Bar in West Palm Beach, which is a part of the Cox Company, and they did a beautiful job of really updating it and making it feel fresh, but while still giving that weighty, you know, full of punch kind of feel.
So do we say AJC or do we say the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or are we still interchangeable with those?
You know, we are the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but we also know that people will refer to us what we call the shorthand. Our parent company is Cox Enterprises. People refer to it as CEI. There are a lot of companies like that. So we are the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but we know that people will refer to us as the AJC, and we refer to us as the AJC. The URL is ajc.com. So it's interchangeable. What we really want people to know, though, is the AJC is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. They are one and the same. And the trust you have in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, you'll have no matter the platform that you're using.
Yeah. And Kelly, I want to get to you before we're finished. Have you noticed what kind of response are you getting to this new star status, in a sense, that you have?
Oh, I didn't know that was the question that you were going to ask.
Well, is there something else you want to talk about? But I think I'm wondering if people are noticing your bylines, if they're noticing the type of reporting you're doing. Do you feel that there's the pressure to press on? You know, like you feel like like you really want to be Superwoman out there as a journalist.
Well, it's an unusual, I guess, situation for a print reporter. I think that we often like to be kind of, behind the scenes and fly on the wall and observe what's going on. And so, I'm not used to, that kind of a situation. But I don't think it'll really change the way that I do my job. I'll just continue on with trying to be a reporter, getting as much information and perspective as I can.
Yeah, and somebody commented in the comments that it's something that is done at the television level, where they will promote their reporters or their anchors, but that we're not used to seeing it at your level. But I get the reason for it now, and I'm so glad you guys had a chance to explain it. I think we're coming to rounding up to the end on this. If we didn't get to all your questions, I think some of you may answer them individually, if you guys could, in the chat. But I've enjoyed this conversation. I know you have probably too, Christy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Donna, for moderating too. And I do think we have time to get one more question that someone had put in the chat, and that is an important one, I think, especially with regard to talking about reporters like Kelly and Ernie, who have their own audiences. I mean, people who want to know about the airport and everything that's happening, especially in the wake of the pandemic. They've been reading Kelly. People read Ernie for a variety of reasons, civil rights, culture, you name it. But how is the paper using any data to connect to individual reporters' audiences? I mean, I know a lot of the AJC reporters, whether they're featured in the campaign or not, have really sizable followings on social media and have a really set audience. So I didn't know if there was any sort of linkage or how the campaign would try to connect, other than just going back to their reporting, if there was any data that was going to try to really leverage those audiences.
Kevin, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead. Donna.
Data is everything. We have a stellar group of data scientists that are looking at everything going on digitally with us, no matter the platform, how it leads back to ajc.com, where people are going, how we message to them throughout, whether or not they're a subscriber, all of that. So data is, yes, it's just everything for us.
Well, thank you. It is noon now. We'd like to thank our audience. We had a really great audience today, lots of reporters. So it was great to see our members enjoying this event. Thanks to Donna Lowry, of course, for doing a great job moderating as always. And thank you to our panelists, Kevin Reilly, Donna B Hall, Ernie Suggs, and Kelly Yamanouchi. A special thanks also to our board chair, Ken Foskett, who is a senior editor at the AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and our board member, Rodney Ho, who's a beloved longtime TV, radio, and entertainment reporter at the AJC. Please note that this event will be available to watch later online at the Press Club's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Visit atlantapressclub.org for more information about our upcoming events to join, to become a member, or to make a donation. Thanks again, everybody, for a great discussion. This was helpful, and we're excited to see where this campaign goes. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye now.
Take care, everybody.